that wasn't the best thing that was best, I wish we had, I wish there was some way that we could have kept it, but by recommendation of the city manager, in order to streamline our budget, we had to cut those positions. Also, one thing we didn't agree with when we talk about the budget, community center hours, those have been cut. Okay, and so quite a few of us were vehemently against that. We didn't want to cut community center hours, but that was part of the approval process as well. We weren't all for it, so let's go, try to speak against it, but overall, that passed. When it comes down to the hike and bike trail, he's right. When you talk about quality of life, when I was on the council the first time, I talked about parks. One of my main things was parks, neighborhood parks. But that got voted down by the majority of the council because one council member described it as, well, if we put in more neighborhood parks, then that'll just invite more crime. People will come in and do their crime in the neighborhood parks and so forth. But that was voted down. But all of a sudden, hike and bike trails are good. And I'm not saying they're a bad thing, but all of a sudden they're better than neighborhood parks. Because my argument was, if you create a neighborhood park and you put a little track around it, then parents can walk the track while their children play. They can watch their kids as they walk the track. And I told them, I said that at that point in time, I think a 5-year-old or 8-year-old would rather play on a playground than walk a 2-mile track. Okay, but either way, it's become a quality of life thing now as far as some council members are concerned. Now the thing about it is this: I don't mind hiking bike trails, but as far as their priority, prioritizing them when we should do it, when we shouldn't. Now what comes along is this: we have a state grant that allows us to do a portion of this hike and bike trail. They give us money, but it's like an 80-20 split, so we pay for like about $1.8 million, I think it is, or something like that. And so for this trail, for our portion of it, now this is something that the developer could have put in themselves, but we decided we wanted to help them. And so when you saw this last, at the past few council meetings and workshops, when it came down to voting for the trail, 3 of us voted against it, 4 people voted for it. And the argument was quality of life. So, like I said, even like he said, maybe 10% of those people will actually use it. Our population of Killeen will use it, but at the same time, it actually adjoins itself to Purcell Park as well. It's right there on the outskirts of Harker Heights, and it joins itself to Purcell Park, in which case, if that be the case, then if I'm living out there and I'm walking that trail, then if I want to go spend some money, I might as well just go on to Harker Heights.
Yep.
Okay, because it's adjoining the Purcell Park right there. And so, if I want to use a park in the city, then I might as well walk on to Harker Heights because that's where it goes to anyway. Of course, Harker Heights has its own trail as well, so if I want to get a good walk in, then instead of coming back into Killeen, I start in Killeen, go to Harker Heights, and do that. And so I don't really see any, there's a benefit for the people who live in that particular development. And I will admit, I've been out there before, and before it got started, it's a nice development. Very, very, high-end homes, very, very nice. I have to admit it, but at the same time, it's about prioritizing, like I said.
Where's the hiking bike trail again?
It's not there yet.
Where's it gonna be at?
It's gonna be out there.
Rosewood.
Okay, Rosewood, and it's an area it's a wooded area that's being developed right now. And
Flood zone part of it.
yeah, and so so I went out there when it was first being developed. We got a tour and everything of it, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it was nice. It was like kind of wooded, kind of private almost, serene, nice. But for the most part, it's gonna be pretty much exclusive to those people who live in that particular development.
It's gonna help their property value.
Yeah. And so, but like I said, prioritization, even though you got a state grant, it's still about the timing of it. Could we have used that $1.8 million to do something else?
Yes.
Okay, that $1.8 million
The
could
fire
have.
department and the police department.
Well, and other things, even if you
And
split
other
it, but
things,
still, yeah.
Now, but as far as it goes, that was turned into a priority, and of course, like I said, the argument is quality of life, when at the same time, a few years back, neighborhood parks weren't quality of life, they were drawers of crime. Okay, so now, Killeen becoming an employment agency, and that is true, that has been happening. Okay, from the time I was on to the time now, we've been losing officers to other cities, and it's been unfortunate, but it's been something that's been happening because of, and it all comes back down to budget issues. It all comes back down to budget issues. And even as we talk about the number of officers on the street compared to other cities, like Waco and so forth, and his recommendation of how many officers we should have, technically, over the years, when he made mention about talking to an officer in the 90s, he said that how many officers were on the street back then?
Minimums were 9.
9, okay? And that's when the population was, he said, was like 86,000. Now we're almost at 120-something thousand, and we've only increased 3. So what that means is this: as the population in Killeen has increased, something has gone wrong with the budget. Because they haven't really increased the numbers like they should. They haven't increased the numbers like they should. Fire station number 9, that was built last year in 2017. I live in that development out there where fire station number 9 is, and I've lived there for, let's see, I moved out there in 2006. So 11 years later, one of the fastest growing areas in Killeen, Texas. 11 years later, we finally got a fire station. Okay, that's not, in my opinion, it's in my opinion, that's not proper planning. We basically what happened is we didn't plan for our growth. We didn't keep up with our growth because once something, and if I'm gonna ask you, Mr. Clifford, when it comes to the fire station, if I try to get you in trouble, if it's gonna get you in trouble, don't answer. But I mean, when it comes to the fire station, and I don't know this, that's what I'm asking you. At what point in time should a fire station be added to an area or a region based on population?
In the best case scenario,
Yes.
it should be, it should be one of the first things in there. So when, the new schools were put in, or when, like when they made Shoemaker, into Shoemaker instead of the Elton Ninth Grade Center, probably about that time. It should be one of the foundation pieces. It shouldn't be reactionary, because at that time, we're already behind the 8 ball, and behind the power.
So we should have a couple more fire stations in our city?
Yeah, the industry standard is 1 fire station per 15,000
Oh, wow.
population.
And as far as District 4 goes, if you look at the side of West Van Sluter, and you go all the way down 195, none of that was there when I moved out there. None of that. I was able to walk out the backyard of my house and look all the way down to Clear Creek. And I mean, it was like living out in the country. I loved it. Okay, but in that time frame, even like you said with Shoemaker, that was there before I got there. And so that's what's going on right now. For some reason, the city isn't growing, in my opinion, I always say that, like it should be. And that's one of the things that I'm really trying to work on changing. And it all, like I said, it all comes down to the budget. Even with the ambulances. Now of course we mentioned about the fire truck, okay? Unfortunate accident, things like that happen. But as he said already, insurance money came in, but the city decided to, because that was during the time where all the accusations were going about, things were going out about the $8 million budget shortfall. So when that was happening, the city decided instead to take the money and put it back into the general fund to compensate for that $8 million shortfall. And I'll just throw this out there, but if you didn't have an $8 million budget shortfall, why'd you take the money and put it in there to make up for it? Okay, but either way, I was on the audit committee and
That's like fake news.
yeah, I was on the audit committee for that investigation, and all I say is, and I'll use the terminology right here, to me, it was like a one-night stand thing. They came in, they told us things that we knew, they told us things that we wanted to hear, but when it came out to the open, things flip-flopped. And so, but, yes.
I have a question with that point, because I've been sitting here thinking about it. It sounds like there's a lot of circular reasoning going on the council, okay? How do we as citizens, other than our vote, okay, how do we put a stop to that? Because that doesn't make a drop of sense to me that you have a fire truck that gets totaled out, you get the insurance money, that's something that's necessary and needed for the city, and you go and you put it over in something else. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. And who's governing those who are supposed to be governing?
Well, I mean, and that's why, like you said, when it comes to voting, you say, what can you do besides voting is, I'll say this, you have to vote for the right people. You have to do your research. And like I said, if you ask somebody who to vote for, and they tell you, even as you trust them, tell them to give you some background behind them. Because as far as it goes, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not gonna try to mislead you or anything like that. But you have to do your research. And I mean, even so, you may have to go back and look at old videos or audios of the city council meetings to see what happened at that point in time, because I wasn't on the council at that point in time when it happened, but even when I saw it, I mean, well, I guess I'll say because I didn't know all the ins and outs of it at that point in time, but even when I came to a full knowledge of it, I was like, this is ridiculous. And there are times where even I quote what the city manager says sometimes, what our new city manager says at times, and these are things he said. And like I told people, I said, if he says he didn't, let me know, because we're gonna have to talk. But as far as it goes, yes.
I'm just,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
so, to your point, I said that money was taken and put in the general fund. When we found out about it, I went and asked a couple of the council members, and they didn't know it happened, so it didn't even make it to the council. The city as in the city manager, the department heads, that's like that term for city. They were the ones that made that decision, to help balance other areas.
But
Like I
when they
said,
saw it in the budget, was there any questions raised in their behalf? That's what I have to ask as a question then.
Well, it was after the budget, and like I
Well,
said, when we asked about it, a couple of the council members looked into it, and the answer I was told was, we'd love to get you that money, but the city has already spent it, it is gone, it is not to be found.
And so, like I said, therein lies your issue. Now, one thing, like you said, one thing I do not want to do is I don't want to, vilify anybody, on the staff that, didn't have any say-so in this, because things, in the end, it is those people who are in charge that make the decisions. I could be a lower staff member, say, this is the worst, this, you shouldn't do this, but, okay, if you want to do it, if I'm the subordinate, then I can express my opinion, but in the end, you have to hold the top people responsible, and if the council didn't know about it, that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
That should have been approved by the council. No questions about it.
Yeah.
That should have been approved by the council.
Baldwin at that time?
I believe
Yeah.
Chief Ballard,
Yeah.
Dennis Baldwin was the interim city manager at that time.
So, but now I will say this though, so as far as moving on, when we talk about the mud, okay, they made comments about, the county being the primary service for anything that's out of our city's ETJ, and they're correct on that. But now, one thing I will say is this, that when it comes to servicing the mud, that the plan is for our KPD and our FD to help service them. As you said, we do have a mutual contract. And I remember when the mud contract first came up and we were doing negotiations, I asked the question, and I remember I asked Chief Gardner this question. I asked him, I said, who is going to service the mud as far as PD and FD? I said, is that going to be the county? And I can't remember it all exactly, but in the end, his answer gave a strong sense that we were going to be supporting it. Now, maybe that was through mutual agreement, or how be it, or so forth, but we will be some of the people who are, our PD and FD will be some of the people who will support the mud. Now, the question comes in, and even as we talk about a mutual agreement, because it's in the contract as well, I remember reading it in there about something about that support. But as far as it goes, but I'll say this, if there's any confusion on that, then real quick, maybe I can find out, because the questions I've asked, I even asked the city manager, or current one, about police and fire support, and he said, yes. Okay, this was offline that me and him talked, but easy to find out. I'll send out an email, and I'll ask him that question, and I will forward it to Mr. Sullivan over here, and I'll make sure I CC it to him, and we'll get an answer on what we're planning to do. Okay, because I want, like I said, I'm not trying to mislead anybody. If I make a mistake, then I will claim it, even as y'all said, with the mutual agreement, that is true. But my thing is, I want to know how much of our PD, or what percentage of our PD and FD will be surfacing the mud, because if we stay at the same standard as far as officers on the streets, if we can't do something about getting more, then once the response is going out there, then guess what? We're still left more vulnerable. Okay, so now, at the same time, I remember when we had the mud discussion last week, or the town hall meeting last week, then the city commissioner, he made a statement, he was trying to make a statement, but my co-host at that point in time, she had already pretty much, if you want to say, shut down Corbin for trying to make a statement, so she kept it even and wouldn't let him speak as well. Now, I wanted to hear him speak, but I had to, at the same time, I had to respect it, because, okay, you did to him, so. But at the same time, I still want to get with him and talk with him offline about what his thoughts are, because it may give me more insight, or at the same time, it may give me more clarity as to why I'm so against this thing in the first place. Now, but as far as it goes with that, like I said, when we talk about budget, right now we're planning a lot of things around the mud. We're planning a whole lot of things around the mud right now. Because whether people think it's a good deal, whether people think it's a bad deal, we're planning a lot of things around the potential cost that is associated with that municipal utilities district. We can't do a lot of things right now because, as of now, we are contractually obligated to do these specific things once that development gets up and running. So we already put out $35 million for a water plant that could have been delayed, but we had to figure out a way to supply the mud with water. And that's one thing I told people. I told people this when we were on the council. As far as the negotiation process, the staff at that point in time withheld pertinent information about water. When I asked the question if water was a good reason to say no, at that point in time, the assistant city attorney at that point in time kept repeating the same answer. If we say no, then they can go to TCEQ and they can appeal. And if they appeal, then we have no say-so on the development. Is the water a good enough reason to say no? Well, if we say no and they appeal, is the water a good enough reason to say no? Well, if we appeal, same thing about 3 or 4 times. But what I found out even just recently, as I was reading TCEQ's website, is that even if they appeal to TCEQ, that's the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, even if they had appealed to them, then we could have said no to the water. Their guidelines say that they have to go out and get their own water supplier, water switch supplier for the development. We could have said no to it. They could have appealed. TCEQ could have said yes, but they would have had no water, and life would have been going on as usual. But that information was withheld from us. Even when I asked about it, it was not told. And I said, based on that right there by itself, okay, I haven't even got into the contract yet, but based on that fact right there by itself, and it'll be on audio, and that's supposed to be online, but like the city manager said, there's some few things